2 weeks ago, a minister was with his congregation and said, I really want to talk to y'all about the problems we have if we tell lies. And so he said, I want everybody to go home and read Mark 17 for next week, and we'll talk about it next week. So the next week came about, which was last week, and he said, all right, thank you everybody for coming this morning. How many of y'all read Mark 17 like the assignment? Yeah, everybody in the congregation raised their hand. And he said, oh great. Well now, since there is no Mark 17, we can talk about the problems that you run into when you lie. Some of you old Bible thumpers knew that when I told you, darn it, before we got to the punchline. Oh well, that's all right. Well, today's message is about, or it says, I've got this. It's not really about that, but anyway. Sometimes, especially in unity, any church really, but many times when people come to church, they're coming to church to find some comfort. It's so funny that I used the word comfort. You didn't change that for me, did you? I used the word comfort. Today's daily word is comfort. But they come to church to find comfort in whatever's happening in their life. And most people, for that part, find comfort at church, especially here. I think that we are so blessed to be with people that are in this congregation because we are so loving. I mean, I've never heard of anybody coming here that's new and not admit or say that you have a great, wonderful, loving group there that is very accepting and very willing to embrace anybody as a new member. Sandy, can you turn up and turn that heat off, please? Thank you. I'm going to be hot here in a minute. But,
we don't
anyway,
want you to get hot.
So,
do you need the fan on? Just
no, I'm fine. Just, unless somebody else needs the fan on.
I need the fan on.
Okay, just turn the fan on,
Turn
please.
the heat off.
Well, now you're getting into something.
Yeah, you can see it. Instead of auto, just put it on there.
I got it.
Thank you.
I checked.
There you go. Thank you. All right. Back to people getting comfort.
Yes.
All right. That's what I needed, is some comfort there.
That's
So,
right.
oh, wow. Actually, I can feel that. Thank you. So, people come to church to find comfort and to be consoled sometimes in some area of their life. And that works. And well, for a lot of people, most people, and here especially. Yet, in unity, I have found over the years, and in unity more than others, I believe, is for some reason, after they find that comfort and they feel comfortable, then they decide, well, you know what? I got this. I got this. I don't really need to go to church anymore or be there. But, you know, then something happens along the way after a few months and they decide, you know what, I need some comfort again. And so they go to, maybe not even a unity church, they go to another church and to find comfort. And so, not regrettably, I almost said regrettably, I don't mean regrettably. What I mean is, the reason sometimes people go to another church and after finding their comfort stay is because they have the threat thrown at them that if you don't continue to come, by golly, then what's going to happen? You're going to see about Mark 17 is what you're going to happen. It is written somewhere, but not where you can see yet. Anyway, chaos occurs. And chaos is something that is, as we all know, disorder, confusion. This is from the Revealing Word. Discord. Chaos in body and affairs results in chaos in mind, a product of the sense man. What does that mean? Well, talking about chaos, the only place that chaos can happen is in us as a human. So when we have chaos in our life, what we're thinking about is our human existence and what is going on in our human life, not taking into consideration anything from the spiritual or our spiritual tie to God, spirit, whatever. That's what happens when we find ourselves in chaos. The good thing about chaos is that from chaos comes new light. Well, how does that happen, Warren? I mean, I was down and then I went to church, went to the beautiful Unity east of Atlanta to find comfort. I found it there. I found that new light there, and it was wonderful. Well, it's fairly easy, even in our human mind. We use our human mind sometimes to intellectualize these things and figure out what it is. Well, the intellectual answer is you found the light. But how did you find the light? Is you remembered your connection that you always had. And one of the things I love about Unity's teachings, and it's a double-edged sword, is that not totally as true as I thought it was before, but you can do this on your own. You can know your spirituality. In fact, you need to do a lot of it on your own, believe it or not. Your own spirituality. You have to look for it and find it in different places other than church. We all know that, and we have to practice what we preach, practice what we are learning, what we know to be the truth of us, which is a spiritual being having this human life right now. And we have to practice that. But the double-edged sword of it is that if we don't go to church and we don't commune with people of the like mind, we cannot find answers as quick or as easy as if we did it on ourselves. Why is that? It's not a cut-dry statement I make, because you can find all those answers by yourself. You could. But as a human, our human intellect sometimes has that stuff come in and thinks only materialistic and human ideas, and we think, oh, well, you know, this is the way it is, when it's not the way it is, because we're thinking only human, only materialistic things, and then we go back to that chaos stuff. And so when we think about, when we're around other people, especially of like mind, we can say, without even, you know, being in an area of chaos or being in an area where we need comfort, and find out, glean some things that are wonderful in our life that can really lift us up before we even needed that. Hey, you know, I'm looking for this. Dr. Barbara, I want to thank her. I'm going to use your name, Dr. Barbara, because it makes no difference where you are in life. It makes no difference what you've studied. You know, I went to seminary to be a minister and got a master's degree in that. Yet, Dr. Barbara gave me something. Oh, it was a new writing for me to read. I think it was 1880 or something like that. That it was written, but it was a writing about being physically ill. And in Unity's teachings, the way I've been raised and the way I've learned it and the way Charles Fillmore understood it was, when we're physically ill, then we've thought of something that isn't spiritual, that we thought of something in only materialistic forms, and we brought it upon ourselves. Okay? But I love what Dr. Barbara, same type of writing in the time frame that Fillmore was, what she gave me. And it was a wonderful gift. And I don't know if she knew it was going to be such a wonderful gift. I think she did. But anyway, it was about being physically ill. And what if we shifted our ideas of being physically ill to this idea that was shared with me about when you're physically ill, what it is doing is getting rid of some of that human stuff, that junk that you've got in you, opening up the space for the new idea, the truth idea that we've always had in us, but for some reason we've got this junk in there now that we've got to get rid of. And I was thinking, especially after she gave me that, because I was just getting over a cold and stuff, and I was thinking, thank God that wasn't something I brought on myself anymore. Although I can see both. It was something I brought on. Do you see the both, how they correlate?
Yes.
It was something I brought on myself, but it wasn't something that I can necessarily identify with. But with that new idea of being, when that happens, it really can be a glorious thing instead of, oh my God, my body's not feeling good, you know. And it isn't something that is terrible. I taught for a long time, you know, about human illness, about it being part of race consciousness, and I still believe that, as far as, you know, the race, meaning all of us as a human race, think these thoughts, and they do go up just like moisture from the ground goes up and forms a cloud. Well, these human thoughts go up and form a cloud, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. They're going to, when they get to a certain critical mass, they're going to come down. And it doesn't make no difference who it comes down on. Last night it rained on me. If you live in Conyers, I know it rained on you too. But did you have something to do with that? Well, really not, because that moisture came from probably Alabama, somewhere in there, and came down over here in Conyers. Well, I don't know too many people in Alabama. I know some.
Sanders.
Yeah, some. Sanders' mom. Lots of people, but not a lot. Some. Yeah, roll tide, whatever. You see the correlation now?
Yes.
How our relationship with the idea of a higher power, though, is critical here. And what we decide to do creates the world that we actually experience. how we have that relationship. A lot of people say, well, you know what? They might not go as far as saying I'm an atheist, but I don't know about this other being. And it really isn't another being anyway. It's all of our beings is what it is. I was so happy to read this morning in the and you know I admit I've vacillated back and forth on this idea before, but I'm so glad I read this morning online, and I don't know how if it's going to come to fruition or not. But a lot of the states, the states in the United States, are coming to the idea that we need to repeal the death penalty. And why I say that is, and I know that there are some extreme cases that we feel like, oh man, that person doesn't need to be around anymore. And there's a cycle there. There's a cycle of life that, and it's all the time, that if we don't continue the cycle of life and we promote the cycle of death, what's going to happen? More death, right? If we promote, whatever we promote in our mind is going to show up in our life, right? Or it is. That's what happens. And, whether you're for the death penalty or not, it's just like, oh man, I can understand somebody being for it if something heinous happens, especially if you're related to that person. But sometimes we go crazy on that stuff. And when we do, when is the finger going to point at us? It goes back to the Bible teaching of the first one without sin, throw the first stone. It's tough. It's tough, I know. We have to still do that sometimes in our life, physical life. That's where we go out from church on Sunday morning and go live that stuff and think, man, okay, I'm communicating with this person that really is a jerk. And how am I going to communicate with that person?
Quit saying jerk.
Yeah, quit saying jerk, first of all. Get rid of that jerk idea out of our mind. And, deal with them as a human being. This is Fillmore's revealing word about how that relationship should be as far as spiritual and our relationship with Spirit. God is personal to us when we recognize Him within us as our indwelling life, intelligence, love, and power. There is a difference between a personal God and a God personal to us. Since the word personal sometimes leads to misunderstanding, it would probably be better to speak of God individualized in man rather than of God personal to man. What he's saying there, if you don't get it, is a personal God is like, okay, this person out here, or this entity out here, instead of God indwelling in me and expressing as me. Each of us are on our own path to the mountaintop. I think we'll agree to that. And no matter who we meet in the world, that is true. I had a seminary student that was a year or two behind me, but he came from Wichita also, which I really didn't even know him in Wichita, but he acted like he knew me real well. Anyway, he had this thing. He has his byline on his emails, and it said, and I really never thought about it before, but it said, treat everyone with respect. Everyone is going through a personal struggle. It's something like that. He said it a lot better than that, actually. But when you think about that, everybody's got their own thing going on, right? And we don't know what that thing is going on. I have to tell you this. I'm very, 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 very grateful this morning. Yesterday when we were here at the church, the boys and I went outside, and I was locking the door. And we had thought we had heard a train coming, and you know how excited the boys get to go see the train. Well, I was holding, JW was beside me, and so was Aiden. And then when I'm sitting there trying to lock the door, a flash second, Aiden ran out over there to try to go to the train, and there was a car coming. And I hollered as loud as I could, and thank God that driver was paying attention. Because you know how even I do sometimes go around with that radio blaring, and you can't hear nothing outside. So, Aiden, I hope he learned his lesson, but I hope so. That's all you can say. But, man, it was just like the timing, and everybody says, when you got kids, a split second, it was. It really was. It was a surprise. So I'm so grateful that when something like that happens to you, and you see how fragile life is, you can step back and think that, what my itty-bitty problems are nothing. Compared to the whole grand scheme of things, my itty-bitty pettiness on different stuff is nothing. So obviously the idea, I didn't change the title, but the idea of I've got this really should be, I'm going to hand this over to God. I'm going to hand all this over to God. And that's really the best thing to do when we have a question about, or we have a pettiness about something else, about someone or some situation. We don't know how it's going to work out. Francie was telling a little bit about Jesse earlier. We don't know how it's going to turn out there. Nobody really does, yet we're going to see it turning out in the highest light, right? And no matter what, and that's the funny thing, and I know that a lot of us have experienced that. When our kids become adults, it's not only is it strap the seatbelt up, but, just, they're going to make their own decisions. And you have to live with those. What I was going to say is you don't have to live with those, but you do have to live with those. But you don't have to take it so personal, is what I'm saying. Not that you want to withdraw from your kids' lives at all. Not saying that. I'm just saying that you have to withdraw yourself from being tied up in it. And I've never been the one that, I mean, sometimes, rarely you think about, well, what did I do wrong? But I've never been in the one really that every time one of my kids does something that I wish they wouldn't have done, to blame myself. Yet, you do take it, it hurts, doesn't it? I mean, all of those that y'all have kids. And so, even psychologically, they tell you, if you've done all you can do, or all you even know how to do, then you need to step back and see what happens, and hopefully they'll drop to the bottom and bounce back up. And yet, I see a story like this morning. I don't know why, I saw this story on, some video or something about a golfer. I don't know how many like golf, but there's a golfer, he has a British accent, so he has his own show on the Golf Channel anyway. I don't really know him that much. He has this little goatee, and anyway. He used to be a pro golfer, obviously. Most of the people on there used to be, that are announcers. And so, during all his young life, he was very heavy alcoholic, then got on pain pills, and he was a good golfer when he was young, and then after years of doing that, it affected his game, and he ended up not being as good, and then he ended up getting on as an announcer. Well, he was saying in this interview, and he had been clean for 10 years, and then he got off the wagon for whatever. I'll tell you why in a second. But he had been clean for 10 years because he knew his wife had, said, hey, you got to stop this, or we're going to leave. And so he'd been clean for 10 years, and then his son, which was going to be 29 on his 29th birthday, ended up dying from an overdose. And he's sitting there talking, talking about how he felt guilty because all those times he was drinking and high or whatever, that he wasn't there for his son. Because his son ended up doing the same thing he was doing. Drinking and getting high. And so, this has been probably a year or two ago that this happened. And he was thinking, still, you could see that the feelings that he had behind it. And guilt, regrettably. And I think a lot of us as parents do that. But we have to remember that that's a human emotion and something that is really not something that we should be taking on. Even though I'm kind of doing that here. And it's no different between me and you and me and my children. I guarantee you, if I see one of you guys on drugs, I'm going to come out and see you and say, what are you doing? So, when we get in that position, I think that we need to just, the church is so important for us, to be around people that can, like Dr. Barber giving me that one thing to read, things that just can open our mind to a new idea, and the best way to do that is around people that love you and that are going to say, hey, I found this new thing that I think that you would enjoy. Doesn't mean you have to take it right then and read it, although I read Dr. Barber's while she was in class. When she handed it to me, by the time class was over, I gave it back. Because I figured it was going to be something good, and when I started it was. Couldn't put it down. So each of us have a choice to make when we have something that happens, and we can see, the thing is, the good thing about this is, I think, even though we want to try to humanly detach a little bit from the thing happening, is your feelings tell that you don't have to stop loving them, is what I'm trying to say. Not one iota you have to stop loving them. And I think that's where the feelings come in, is because you so deeply love someone. But when we turn it over to God, it's a lot easier. I mean, we kind of say, and we do, however you want to pray it, say, I'm turning it over to you, God. So who is our guide to the place where we are striving to be, up that path that we are individually taking up to the mountaintop? Who are we going to use as our guide? Well, we can use, obviously the idea is to use your spiritual guidance, God, Spirit, whatever, yet that can come from each other also. I've told you many times that each one of us is here divinely to represent and to express a part of God that is uniquely you. And that's a good thing to know, so we can keep going on and being ourselves, yet are we open to receiving that part of God that is individually other people?
Yeah.
Yes, I hope so. To the person we are striving to be, yes, the same thing. Now there is no problem with being happy with where you are right now, with who you are right now. And we all are moving. Everything changes all the time. So we have to continue to grow. God sees you, though, as the perfect and whole in every way. I like that picture again. You've used it before, but I like that picture. But God sees you perfect and whole in every way. And that's why the first thing we should do is turn it over to God, because God is going to give you the perfect idea of you for whatever situation you are in. But we do have to be open to it. We do have to be open to it. And it's sometimes, we're so embroiled in what we're doing that we're in physicality that we're beseeching God, and we're not really open to the idea. But even that is a start to giving it over, to releasing your hold on it at least. Sometimes we get those ideas, those negative ideas, and those things that are not good for us, and we just hold on to those suckers. I don't like that so-and-so, and he did me wrong, and I'm going to hold on to this forever. Do you know?
Yes.
Regrettably, I've had a lot of experience with releasing those kind of things. Anyway. No, I'm just... That's an inside joke. Licensing and ordination committee. I'm just kidding now.
No, you're not.
I love a lot of those ministers now. And this is what I was talking about as far as Dr. Barbara letting me share. Dr. Barbara, who was that? Do you remember?
Prentice Mulford.
Bullfork? Okay, Prentice Mulford. Yeah. And so, is it he?
Yes.
Where was he from?
Connecticut.
Oh, it was here in the States. Okay.
Yes.
In Connecticut. So anyway, a different view of dis-ease, and I like using dis-ease because, and we're fortunate really that disease is spelled that way, because that's exactly what it is. You're not at ease when you have a dis-ease, right? You're not at ease. But last few weeks I've been studying some medical things, and it is amazing how far we've come in medical technology, and what we're studying right now as far as gene therapy and things, and how we're splitting things up to be able to separate the good the things that are helping us and the things that aren't inside an individual cell. It's wonderful. So we have a lot of wonderful news continuing to come about from the medical society. But one of the great things I was really high on when I saw this, when I was studying this book, is that one of the questions they had in it was, does prayer help? That's the only spiritual question that was in the whole book. 500 pages or something. And it was, in this group of questions that were just looking at what they're looking at medically. It didn't have an answer in this book, but we know it does. If we pray correctly, and if the people pray or that are being prayed for know about it or don't know about it at all, know about how the prayer is being made. We get to choose whether we are going up toward our desired destination, whether we stop to smell the roses, or whether we are going away from our destination. There's a lesson in whatever route we choose. Wouldn't you say that?
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree with that? There is a lesson, no matter what route we choose to take, there's a lesson there for us. Today, though, let us join as one people, one spirit, and one life. Can we do that?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
I know we can. I hope we can with not only our group that we are helping each other up, but also continue to do that for anybody who steps in here, which is great, and anybody else outside that isn't necessarily Unity that we come in contact with. Because that's what it's going to take. We had a loving minister in seminary. Her name was, it's on the tip of my tongue. Her name is, anyway, I'll remember in a minute. The white-haired lady, E.J. Niles. Some of you may have heard her. She was in Virginia for a long time. E.J. Niles. She came and was an instructor. And she always loved saying about there's just a little bit, it isn't even 51%. There's a critical mass that things change at. And the critical mass can be just waiting for your thoughts to be changing the whole world. Yeah. Just like, that article I read about the death penalty. I didn't even know that was going on. But what made that happen? It's our thoughts about life and about things. So it's just a little bit. It could be something that just your thoughts can change the world. And they do change the world. They definitely change your world, right?
Yes.
So let's start there, changing our own world.
Yes. Today's
song is going to be what, Francie? Oh yeah, I made that. I El Shaddai. How many have heard that before? It's an old song. Really? Okay. I thought more than that. Hopefully you like it.